Are your kids really getting what they need in school? Is their current academic environment holding them back instead of pushing them forward? And as a parent, could you actually take on a much bigger role in their education if you wanted to? If you've been asking yourself these types of questions, trust me, you're not alone. More and more parents, especially in families of color, are exploring homeschooling as a way to create a customized education that truly fits their kids' needs. But here's the thing though, deciding whether or not to homeschool isn't just a yes or no question. It's about asking the right questions to figure out whether this path aligns with your family's values, your lifestyle, and your academic goals. So today I'm walking you through 5 important things to consider before you make the leap into homeschooling. So let's go. Hi, I'm Eline, a homeschool mom of 2, and in this episode, we're going to tackle one of the biggest questions that parents ask when they're first thinking about this path. And that's simply, should I homeschool? Now, typically, the parents that I talk to fall into one of 3 categories. So the first one is they've been doing all the research, they've been reading the blogs, watching the videos, scrolling through Facebook groups, but the fear of doing something that they don't see anyone else in their circle doing is what's holding them back. Now, here's the second group. It's the group for which homeschooling hasn't even been on their radar, but change is. They know deep down that their child needs a better education option, and while homeschooling wasn't the first thought, they're still open to exploring it. And here's the third group. They've started to see other families, maybe people they know personally, or maybe just people that they've come across on social media, and they see these folks doing the homeschooling thing, and they're curious to learn more. So wherever you fall, today I'm breaking down 5 key things to consider before taking the leap. And by the end, you'll have a much clearer picture of whether or not homeschooling is really the right fit for your family and how you can move forward with confidence if it is. So let's jump in with the very first thing to think about. And honestly, in my opinion, it's the most important one. And that is your why, because every homeschooling journey starts with a reason. So for some families, it's wanting to give their child a customized education that really matches how the kids learn. For others, it's about bringing their family's culture or history or their faith to the very forefront. And then for some families, it's about making sure that their child is in a safe, uplifting environment. Now, your why is what's going to ground you, and it's going to help you make clear decisions to support your goals along your homeschool journey. So for me, my why was very clear. I wanted my daughters to grow up seeing themselves reflected in their education. So once we identified that, it made it easier to figure out the rest, whether it was their learning materials, extracurricular activities that they were a part of, the groups that they were in. So I approach most everything in my girls' education from the lens of positive representation. Now, as a parent, let's talk about your educational approach. And if you don't know what that is, no worries, but let's go ahead and talk about it, because homeschooling isn't about dragging a desk into your living room and pretending that you're the math teacher and the history teacher and the lunch lady all wrapped up in one. It's really more than that. It's about reimagining how your kids learn best. So for example, your academic approach might be a project-based learning approach, where your kids get a chance to do things with their hands. They're building things. You guys might be cooking together. You're able to turn everyday moments into lessons as you go. Another approach might be to integrate your faith or your culture right into the heart of your kids' education. So like I mentioned before, this is certainly my approach, and I put our culture at the forefront of most everything we do. But if you're still sitting here thinking, ooh, I still don't know yet what my approach would be, that's okay too, because a lot of us figure it out as we go. But the point is that homeschooling gives you the freedom to create an approach that feels authentic to your family, so that you're not just conforming your kids' education into this generic one-size-fits-all approach. Now, let's get really practical with this next one, and that's asking yourself the question, how does homeschooling fit into your real life? So do you have a flexible work schedule that can accommodate blocks of time where you're working with your kids one-on-one? Or do you have a partner or a support system that you can leverage to make homeschooling flow more smoothly? Or are you working full time and you're trying to figure out if this whole homeschooling thing is even a possibility for your family? So when I first started homeschooling, I had to let go of the ideas that our days needed to look like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. traditional school days. That just didn't fit our life because I was working those exact same hours. Basically, I was working 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so I couldn't make a traditional school day and a traditional work day happen simultaneously. So I learned how to reimagine what our days could look like. So some days the kids learn in the morning and I get to work in the afternoons. Other days we flip it. And then on some days, my husband takes the lead with the kids while I get a chance to focus on work. But the point is that we figured out what works best for our family. And here's the beauty of homeschooling. You can get creative too. You can tweak things, you can make adjustments along the way. But the key is that staying flexible and open to constant improvement is really the superpower that's going to make this thing work for your family. Now, let's talk about another one of the biggest fears that I hear, and that's this. But wait, I'm not a teacher. How can I possibly teach my kids? Well, let me set you free right now. You don't have to know it all. Your role is not actually to be an expert in every single subject. It's really to be your kid's educational guide. And here's how that works. You can lean on curriculum. You can leverage online classes that are taught by trained teachers. You can leverage homeschool co-ops, or you can even bring in private tutors. There are so many amazing resources that you can lean on. And so the beauty is that you get to decide how much you teach directly and how much you outsource. And by the way, if you want a starting place for finding these types of learning materials, I've got a curriculum guide that I'll link to that can help point you in the right direction if you're interested in finding some of these outside resources. But remember this, if you're excited to take the lead in your kids' education, that's amazing. And if you're nervous, that's completely normal too. Just know that you don't have to do this alone. And you definitely don't have to be perfect to give your child a great education. And then finally, let's talk about your support system, because homeschooling can really feel isolating if you don't have the right people in your corner. So here's what to ask yourself. Do you have a supportive partner? Are you surrounded by family and friends who, even if they don't fully understand everything about homeschooling, they still support you and your kids wholeheartedly? And then stepping outside of friends and family, are you interested in finding maybe a co-op or learning pod or virtual homeschool community that you can connect with throughout your homeschool journey? It's good to have a mix of all the above, because the truth is that sometimes your family just won't get it. And sometimes friends may question your decision to homeschool. But that doesn't mean that you're on your own. It just means that you get to build your own village, filled with a community of parents who are walking the same homeschool path and cheering you on along the way. So bottom line, should you homeschool? Well, of course, only you can answer that question. But when you take time to reflect on your why, when you decide on your educational approach, when you look at your lifestyle and your schedule, and when you consider your outside support system, you'll be able to make this decision with confidence. And if you're still wondering where you land, I've got something that can help you. I created a quick free quiz to help you figure out whether or not homeschooling is right for your family. Once you take it, it'll point you toward your next best step. So I'll include that link in the description. But before you take the quiz, remember this. Whether you're homeschooling full-time or not, whether your kids are still in traditional school or whether you're homeschooling, you, my friend, can take ownership of your child's education regardless. And that is a beautiful thing. So I hope you found this episode helpful. Make sure to subscribe and to keep tuning in for continued support in your homeschool journey. And don't forget, learning never ever stops, and homeschool is a beautiful way to live that out. I'll see you in the next one.